righty, we are live in the trenches with Dave Lapham. And Dave Lapham made the trip back from Nashville, the scene of the crime, I guess you could say. No one thought the Cincinnati Bengals were going to beat the Tennessee Titans, I think, over the weekend. So, Dave, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, Dave. I mean, it was a heck of a trip down there. Drove down to Nashville, a little over 4-hour drive. But with all the Bengals fans, the traffic and construction, everything, it was crazy. It took a long time to get down there. Then we stayed Friday night. Of course, the big ball game on Saturday, and what a fantastic football game. They gutted it out. Bottom line is this football team gutted out a victory. And the thing that I think is significant, they beat the Raiders, and that stopped the 31-year stretch, obviously, without a playoff victory. But they have to win the football game on a big play at the end of the football game. It's anybody's game. They finished the game, and they did it at home. Then they go on the road. They haven't won a playoff road game in franchise history. Comes down to the very same thing. You know, who's going to make a play? Who's going to make a play at the end of the football game? Anybody's football game, you know, physical game, back and forth it went. Just gut it out, make a play. Evan McPherson, boom, one from 52 after hitting from 54. Unbelievable. He's 8 for 8 now in 2 playoff games, and he's hit a couple of bombs. He hits one at the gun, just like he did during the regular season, and they win a football game on the road, and they finish. And they broke 2 big streaks, 31 straight years without a playoff win, and then getting the first road win in playoff history. Now, the 2 Super Bowl teams, we didn't have to go on the road. We had number 1 seed, got home games, just like the Tennessee Titans thought, number 1 seed, we're golden. We're on our way to the Super Bowl. Not so fast. Green Bay Packers, number 1 seed, we're going, not so fast. Both number 1 seeds go down. So just to be in a situation where they overcome the opponent on the field that day and win a tough football game at home and on the road to break 2 streaks. And this team's going to be one of the more memorable ones in franchise history. I mean, they broke a couple of streaks that the football team, the organization, wanted to get off the books, and they got them off the books. There's no question about it. Their confidence is sky high, and rightfully so. It's an earned confidence. And, when you look at the upcoming game tonight, you look at this tilt in the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Wow. What a football game. 2 great quarterbacks. In my mind, though, Dave, I think the Buffalo Bills were a more complete football team. I think the Buffalo Bills have a much better defense. In fact, they had the best defense in the National Football League. They were number 1 in points allowed, which is the primary thing. You got to keep people out of the end zone. And they gave up the fewest yards of anybody in the National Football League. I mean, so they're number 1 in just about every category you can, important category you can think of. Here's Buffalo's some key numbers. First in yards per game. First in yards per play. First in passing yards allowed per game. Number 1 in average pass yards allowed per pass play. They were 3rd in interception percentage. 6th in sacks per play. 1st in first downs per game allowed. 1st in third down conversion allowed. And on special teams, they are 2nd in the NFL in covering punts, 3rd in the NFL covering kickoffs, fewest points allowed. They are one of 6 teams in the National Football League that are in the top 10. These guys are in the top 3. The only team in the NFL in the top 3 in points scored, points allowed. With Josh Allen at quarterback. This big old beast he's got over 700 yards rushing as a quarterback. He's their leading rusher. This guy's a one-man show. They're 5th in total yards a game. They're 6th in rushing yards a game. 6th in rushing average per game, yards per carry. 9th in passing yards. They're 2nd in sacks allowed per play. They're 4th in first downs generated per game. 3rd in third down efficiency. And 3rd in points scored. I mean, that is a complete football team. Offensively, defensively, special teams. They're in the top 3 in coverage categories of punts and kickoffs. I just did a little more research on them. touchdowns scored to touchdowns allowed. They've allowed the fewest touchdowns in the NFL, 32. 32 in 17 games, the fewest in the league. They've only allowed 12 touchdown passes in the entire season, 17 games. Best in the league. Their differential, they scored 57 touchdowns and allowed 32. That differential of plus 25 tied for first in the National Football League with the Dallas Cowboys. And then the only other team that had allowed fewer than 20 touchdowns passing, the Los Angeles Rams, had allowed 17. They're the only two teams that allowed under 20. And these guys allowed 12. Everybody else is 20 or well over 20. The touchdown pass ratio, they've only allowed 12, and they've thrown 36. That plus 24 is tied with the Los Angeles Rams. So, I mean, they score. They don't let you. They throw touchdowns. They don't let you. I mean, this football team is, in my opinion, and it's a 17-game season, so, it's not a small sample size. These numbers are generated off the last game of the regular season, league stats for the entire season. That's where they rank. They're a good football team. They're a complete football team. So, and you look at it, you beat Kansas City Chiefs 3 weeks ago. So your offense felt good about matching up with the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Kansas City offensively is crazy good, as we know, with Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, that's kind of a wash at the quarterback position. Then you start looking at other things. But Kansas City is third in the league in yards per game offensively, fifth in yards per play, seventh in rushing average, fourth in passing yards a game. They're third in sacks per pass attempt allowed. They're first in first downs a game, first and third down efficiency offensively, tied for first and fourth down efficiency. Every single one of their special teams is top 10. They're third in punt returns, ninth in kickoff returns, first covering punts, fifth covering kickoffs. But defensively, they don't have anywhere near the numbers. I mean, they're 30th in total yards per play allowed on the year, 31st in rushing average allowed per attempt on the year out of 32 teams. They are 30th in sacks per play generated out of 32 teams. But they are, again, just like the Buffalo Bills, they've scored the fourth most points, and they're number 8 in points allowed. So they may leak a little bit, leak some oil, but when you get down in the red zone, they're tough to score on. That's why these teams are where they are. And Kansas City obviously is going to have blood in their eye, Dave. The Bengals took them out of that first round, that first seed. They had to play in the first round. They did not get the first round bye that Tennessee got, but didn't do them any good. So the Bengals knocked the Chiefs out of it, the first, the number one seed, and then they beat the number one seed to boot 3 weeks later. So it's going to be an interesting tilt. But I just think of all the intel the coaches already have. They've already broken down the Kansas City Chiefs. They have all this information on the Chiefs just playing them 3 weeks ago. Now, you tweak things and, like we always say, make the same things look different. Different things look the same. They do that on a week-to-week basis. But they've got a lot more banked information-wise about the Kansas City Chiefs than they do about the Buffalo Bills. And I think the Buffalo Bills are, again, a more complete football team. But the Chiefs will have motivation. Lost a regular season game, lost out on the number one seed. Instead of playing at Paul Brown Stadium, you have to go to Arrowhead, and it's going to be loud. And that was a problem that the Bengals dealt with in this football game in Tennessee. It was loud down there. Boy, I'll tell you, that Joe Burrow lost his transmitter and his helmet for a while with the sideline, and that was a mess, because now Joe's just trying to call his own formations, plays, and everything, and trying to align with what they're trying to yell at him from the sideline. That thing was a mess, and some of the sacks came during those instances. So there were communication problems. They couldn't hear each other, standing right next to each other, never mind from the sideline to the huddle in the middle of the football field. So it's a factor. That's the reason that you want to be as high a seed as you possibly can and get home field advantage in the playoffs. But the Bengals just won their 6th game this year, 5 in the regular season, and they won this game on the road in the playoffs. They are a good road team. They have some protocols. They have things they want to follow, things they want to do. Just like Joe Burrow when he's warming up. I watched him warm up again. Joe comes out over 2 hours before the game, as usual, makes the exact same throws. He has the same throws, habits, good habits, breed confidence and performance. And he goes through those throws, and you can just see him just dialing in, just focusing, laser focus. He prepares the same way all week long, the same way on game day, the same way on pregame warm-up. And it's a sight to behold, really. And so they've got it figured out. They've got things that they think work when they travel in terms of how they meet, what they talk about when they meet, and all those kind of things. So we'll see if it carries over. When they have to go to Buffalo or Kansas City next week, Dave.
We want to welcome everybody into In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. He's down at the First Star Logistics Studios, and I'm at home. And I hope everyone's staying warm. The weather, a little snow out there, but the roads were pretty clear today from what I saw. So Dave made the trip back, got in late. So we're happy to have him in the studio on a Sunday, a day off, which at this time of year, there's no day off, Dave. So, I mean, it's just the fun part. So, Dave, we've got some questions. Let's get to
let's do it.
Some questions here. First one's Jim Harden. Who Day? I was wondering, Dave, if Frank Pollock, if you're Frank Pollock, how do you fix as best as possible the O-line after the way they were manhandled most of the game yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, they had their times where they were manhandled. A lot of times, though, they were free runners. So it was more of a mental problem, not applying rules properly, not being able to communicate the rules properly to each other, and making calls based on those rules with the crowd noise. I have to give Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff a big tip of the cap. Mike Vrabel is a very, very good defensive football coach. He was a great defensive football player. They decided that they were going to, instead of just showing 4 and dropping 7 back in the coverage, they brought 7 guys to the line of scrimmage and threatened every single one of them to be a rusher at all times. They were only bringing 4 of them, but they were bringing a different 4 every time and running twists and stunts with that. So they had the offensive line confused. The offensive line was blowing some calls. 2 guys would block 1 and 1 would be free, a free runner. As a defensive tackle or a defensive end or a rush linebacker or whatever, you got no shot. You got no chance. That happened some. Quite frankly, other times, receivers didn't get open. I mean, they got covered. They rushed 4 and dropped 7. There was nowhere to throw the football. Joe had to hold the ball a little bit too long. And Joe said after the game, he freely admitted after the game that Vrabel and the staff did a great job of disguising coverages. He said they showed more in this football game than they'd ever shown. And, they were a pretty base coverage team on first and second down. Third down, when they got you in third and long, that's not where you wanted to be. They would run some cover 2 and then run various looks at cover 2. And they ran even more looks of cover 2. Cover 2 meaning two safeties deep. The ball he threw to Jamar Chase, the 19-yard completion at the end of the game, right before McPherson's field goal, was against cover 2 man. And the place to attack it is along the sideline. The safety can't get there from the middle of the football field, and the corner's underneath coverage over the corner before the safety can get there. Boom. Jamar Chase makes a play on it. Joe had a great pocket. There were times when Joe threw for 340-something yards. There were a lot of times he had a pretty good pocket. 9 quarterback sacks, though. That's ridiculous. And, it's the highest he's ever taken, meaning Joe Burrow as a Cincinnati Bengal, that's for sure. He did throw the football 37 times, but still, that's way too many. And when you think about it, they had 2 nullified, one by delay of game and one by another penalty, a timeout, I should say. Delay of game penalty and a timeout that was granted. Both of those plays were sacks. So they could have had 11. So they're going to have to clean that up. They're going to have to figure out a way to communicate a little bit better. Maybe modify the rules to pick up what the Tennessee Titans were doing a little bit better, because that's the template now. When Spagnuolo of the Kansas City Chiefs and when Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinators respectively of the Chiefs and then the Buffalo Bills, when they look at that tape whoever the Bengals are playing as opponents can be like, wow, that really worked against us. Since I'm going to have to employ some of that. So it's a copycat league. And when you figure something out, it's like when the Bengals figured something out against Lamar Jackson and they really controlled him. They mush rushed him and they controlled his running. Every other team in the league started doing it. So you got to know that the next opponent the Bengals play in the AFC Championship game going to try to do a lot of the same things front-wise, pressure package-wise in terms of sophistication and then in the secondary, disguising coverages. This was the first game where I saw Joe Burrow. He always pre-snap gets a read and then post-snap immediately confirms it. I can see he's doing that. This game, pre-snap, I think that's what it is. Post-snap, not sure. That happened to him a few times, and that's saying something. But I asked him during the week. I said, Joe, do you think you've seen everything now that you feel comfortable that you're not going to they're not going to throw anything at you haven't seen? Oh, no, this is the National Football League. I'll see things I haven't seen, and it happened. Mike Vrabel did it. But Joe Burrow will put all that in the memory bank, and he'll just sort through it. And the next week, he'll have answers to the test. And the Bengals will, as a coaching staff, game plan differently against this. They'll make adjustments to what Vrabel and his staff did. So it's like a big chess match all the time. And the thing is, they've got a world-class chess player at the quarterback position. So I feel very confident that the Bengals will be able to make adjustments and move on. And it's a learning experience for Joe Burrow, and he learns faster than anybody, believe me.
Dave, the thing I noticed most was a lot of the pressure was inside pressure where he did have no room to move up into the pocket. But my main question is, how much does this team miss Riley Reif at right tackle?
Yeah, I mean, Riley Reif is obviously a factor. They lost Xavier Su'a-Filo, early in the year to injury as well. The two most veteran guys in their offensive line are not available anymore. So Xavier Su'a-Filo was just put back on the practice squad. They released him in order to make a roster move, and they brought him back in the practice squad. So, they could make a move with him potentially. I don't anticipate that being the case, but you're right, Dave. The inside of the pocket was a real problem. And when you've got edge rushers that were being effective like the Tennessee Titans were, and you can't step up in the pocket, you're dead. And what Joe was trying to do was retreat and serpentine around these defense. In this league, you can't. They're too athletic. They're too good. So, you have to cut your losses, basically eat it, not make an 8-yard sack, a 12 or 13-yard sack by retreating and trying to, spin move on a defensive end or whatever, because they were too good. They were too athletic. But this kid Simmons had 3 sacks, this interior lineman we were talking about. And the only guy that I had rated ahead of him when I watched tape was Aaron Donald. I mean, Simmons, this kid's a player, unbelievable player. So they had 9 sacks, 7 different players were involved in the sacks. That says a lot about it too. Vrabel was bringing it from everywhere. But they had 3 players with more than a quarterback sack, and they were led by Simmons, who had 3. And what they were doing inside as well is they were twisting. The defensive tackle's inside, and a defensive tackle would penetrate and grab 2 guys, and then the looper would be coming free. So they're going to have to do a better job in terms of passing those off if you want to do it zone, or staying with a guy, not allowing the penetration and letting the other lineman play a man concept, come behind and get the looper and stay with him on a man concept. It's like basketball. You either play man defense or you play zone defense and pass it off. So they're going to have to all be on the same page and tighten all that up. I can't imagine that either of these football teams, and I haven't looked at tape yet on now. I did look at tape of the Kansas City Chiefs as the Bengals were getting ready to play them 3 weeks ago. And they've got an interior guy. Jones is a beast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have another interior defensive tackle who is, up there with Simmons. I mean, these are Pro Bowl guys. So they're going to have to solidify the interior of that pocket because, as you know, a quarterback, the worst problem for him is to have these behemoths in his face. Can't see. You just can't see. Now you're throwing the football and saying, boy, I hope I hope it's okay. I hope I'm making the right throw. And when you can't see where you end up trying to throw to, that's got to be a brutal feeling. Not only do you have to have time, we talk about this all the time, but space. And on the completion, the 19-yard completion to Chase had time and space. He had a pocket. He had 5 yards vision between him and the nearest defensive lineman in the interior. And he saw the football field and threw a dime. He dotted him down there, 19 yards down the football field. Going to have to give him time and space. There's no doubt about it, no matter who they play, the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills next week. And they're both good football teams. And Buffalo, like we said, Buffalo's defense is arguably the best in the league. They've got 2 safeties that five interceptions each. I mean, that's pretty rare. I mean, those guys, that's a heck of a tandem back there. And, they patrol that middle of the football field and they get after you. And you have to be very, 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 very sound with where you're throwing the football and how you're throwing it and all those good things that go with it. They get a couple back there that can really play. So Jones, by the way, Kansas City Chiefs interior defensive lineman, he's got 9 quarterback sacks. Simmons had 8.5 on the season. Jones had 9 interceptions. Poyer and Hyde, the 2 safeties of the Buffalo Bills, have combined for 10 interceptions, 5 apiece. That is strong.
Staying with the offensive line, Mr. Whisper says, Dave, the right side of the line was getting demolished. Is there a chance that Big Fred plays? I think he did well against the Denver defense. Why hasn't he played over Prince already?
Because Prince is performing better than him on a day-to-day basis in practice. Fred has to make the game a little bit more important to him, I think. If Fred were out there in the circumstances that these get right, you can't draw comparisons to Fred played well at home against a team that didn't have as good a defensive line as opposed to Prince playing in the playoffs on the road against a bunch of beasts. So what you have to do as a coach, you make evaluations on how a guy performs for you in pass protection, in all elements of practice on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis. And Fred basically, Frank Pollock decided that Isaiah Prince was giving him more consistency, better snaps on a more consistent basis at the right tackle position. And honestly, up until this past game, I thought that Adeniji and Prince had both played pretty well. They didn't in this football game, and I think a lot of it is who they played against, where they played, the circumstances involved in the game. Playoff football is another level. Comparing a guy's performance in the playoffs to a guy in week 7 of a regular season, night and day in terms of intensity and variables and all the things that go along with it. But that's not to say that if Fred decides to come out and have a great week of practice and show that he really wants that job at right tackle, the only way that he's going to be able to unseat Isaiah Prince is he has to decide that he wants to do it. Nobody else. So I think I don't think you throw, the baby out with the bathwater at this point, but you definitely there definitely has to be some improvement and some adjustments made to it. And every coach that we talked to today, including Zach Taylor, he said, look, it falls on some of them, definitely the offensive line. I mean, I saw Adeniji get bull rushed and just thrown like a rag doll to the ground. It happens. It happens in the National Football League when you're playing against great players like Simmons. That'll happen every once in a while. And the offensive line was responsible for a few of the sacks, good number probably. But like CJ Uzomah was saying, I had problems. Running backs had problems in blitz pickup. Receivers had problems getting open. Zach Taylor identified all that as well and said, I put us in the wrong protections against defensive fronts as a play caller multiple times as well. Sometimes they just win. You make a call and you've got a protection tied in with that call, and they line up in the defense where they're going to have a free runner. You can't block them all. And if your receivers don't win and you have nowhere to throw the football, you either throw the football away or you get sacked. So, and then maybe there might have been a couple of occasions where, in hindsight, Joe probably could have thrown the football away. He's so darn competitive. He wants to make something happen no matter what. But sometimes it's hard to make something out of nothing, and you just have to, live for another snap and take the medicine, even though it tastes so bad.
Alan M's comment, basically Evan McPherson, a better Jimmy Breach.
Evan McPherson is a better a lot of guys. Evan McPherson is talented. I mean, the thing that cracked me up is Evan McPherson going out to kick a game winner. I mean, you think, okay, the young guy, is he a little bit nervous? He's taking some practice swings, just going through the mechanics of how he's going to kick it. And on the sideline, he sees Brandon Allen, the backup quarterback for the Bengals, and after he swings his leg a couple times, he walks by Brandon Allen. He says, well, time to go get ready for the AFC Championship game. This thing's going to be good. I mean, that's the confidence the kid went out on the football field with, and he struck it. And he doesn't – when he hits it, he'll look at it for a second, but then he just goes to Kevin Huber, and he'll say to Kevin Huber, I really hit that. And he got a lot of criticism against the Green Bay Packers for celebrating prematurely with Kevin Huber, and then the wind, took it and hit the little streamer on the top of the upright, and it wasn't good. But he hit that thing perfectly. It was going right down the middle between the goalposts, but Mother Nature took over. But on this day, there wasn't any wind or anything, and he just, as soon as he hit it, he walked to Huber and said, I hit that one. And Huber goes, you did it. You did it. You hit it. And they started going crazy. So this guy has confidence, and it's earned confidence, just like Joe Burrow. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you're the man. You're going to be able to get it done. And I credit Darren Simmons. I mean, he said to the Bengals in the draft last year, when the 5th round came around, the Bengals had a high 5th round pick. He said, look, I was down there at his workout. He's different. This kid's pretty rare. And there were a bunch of special teams coaches down there. We don't take him now, we're not going to get him. He won't be there at the beginning of the 6th round. They took him, and there's no regrets. Darren Simmons knows of what he speaks. And this kid is dynamite. 8 for 8 now in the playoffs. 8 for 8 as a rookie. He made 9 field goals, 9 for 11 from 50 plus during the regular season. 9 made field goals from 50 plus is a Bengals record. He did it in 1 year. He doubled the prior record, field goals made from 50 and beyond. He doubled it in his rookie season. He's got 9. Now he's got 2 more in the playoffs. Unbelievable. He's a weapon.
Have to stress, we had the chance to have him on in the trenches earlier in the year. We also had him visit at First Star Logistics right before Christmas. And as confident as he is on the field, as humble he is in person. Yep. Awesome young man. Our dealings with him, unbelievable.
Yep.
And,
great guy. And it's like, it's not like obnoxious, his confidence. It's just like, I know I'm going to do this. It's not like, yeah, I'm the baddest man on earth and you can't touch me. You can't he's not that kind of guy. He's just matter-of-factly, yeah, I'm capable of this. I'm going to do this. And he's got ice water in his veins. Nothing bothers the guy. I mean, he's up to the challenge. I mean, if you challenge him with something, he's up to trying to match that challenge and beat it. There's no doubt about it.
Arnold Ziffel, Bengals getting mega contributions from the last 2 draft classes. And I stress to everybody to go back and watch. We spent some time with Duke Tobin earlier, right before the season, on In the Trenches. Go back and watch that, because he talks about putting together this football team. And for Duke Tobin is a guy, as you know, Dave, he's taken a lot of heat as what his job with the Cincinnati Bengals, but he's proven that they've put together a pretty good team this year.
Well, in the 2020 draft, all 7 draft picks made the football team. All 7. Pretty strong, and like we said before, Duke Tobin and his people in the personnel department built the offense pretty much through the draft and redid the defense through free agency. I mean, they basically in the last 2 years have spent close to $250 million, $250 million, I should say, $250 million on the defense. So they've made some big decisions. And you look at the three guys that made big play. The defense won this football game. But bottom line is, I believe in the adage, defense will win championships. If you play solid defense, you always have a chance to win in the playoffs and win championships. And this group, I mean, they stymied the Raiders, and they stymied the Texans. They in these last two games, they hold the Raiders to 1 touchdown and 5 red zone opportunities. They hold the Texans to 1 and 3 red zone opportunities. 2 touchdowns, 8 trips inside the 20-yard line. 25% is the conversion rate that they've allowed the opposition to score a touchdown. That is unbelievable. I mean, in the regular season for the year, that would have led the league by, 15 plus percentage points. They are bending but not breaking. They are not letting people score touchdowns, and that is big. And then they had 3 takeaways, 3 interceptions. How about poor Ryan Tannehill? The first play of the game, Bengals come out in a 5-man defensive line. I want to give credit to DJ Reader. Dominated. I mean, took the interior lineman apart. Ben Jones, the center. Long day at the office, boy. Good football player, but DJ Reader dominated him in this football game. They got snaps from a lot of guys that had to expand their role because of injuries, like Larry Ogunjobi goes on IR. B.J. Hill played his heart out. Tupou played as long as he possibly could. I mean, everybody. Zach Kerr, the guy they just signed 2 days ago, he was in there playing, making plays, wearing number 69 and getting after it. Everybody contributed to this defense. But the first play of the game, they come out in a 5-man defensive line look, and they throw the football. Tannehill gets picked off. Jesse Bates sets the tone. First snap of the game is a takeaway. So poor Ryan Tannehill's first pass is picked off. The first drive of the first possession of the second half for the Tennessee Titans, they run the ball 5 plays in a row. Then they decide they're going to throw the football. And when they throw the football, how about the play that Mike Hilton made? The first pass that Tannehill had in the second half, Mike Hilton jumps, tips it to himself, interception. He got teased to death because Tannehill caught him from behind and made the tackle. But Tannehill played wide receiver in the Big 12. He can run, but that was a great play.
Yeah, I'm gonna pose this again, Dave, because Rick Hay says, "Houday, I'm going to buy Hilton a 5-hour energy drink to outrun a QB."
Yeah, right. He's going to catch some heat for that, but honestly, Tannehill got a jump on him because when he went airborne and tipped it, Tannehill started running because, this could be bad. Then he had to wait for it, come down to it, and then start. Tannehill can run, and Tannehill had an angle on him, and Tannehill caught him and made a play on him. But he's going to catch some grief about it. He's already caught grief today from his teammates. They're all kidding him. But that was a big play. But then you look at the interception on his last throw. So his first throw of the game, his first throw in the second half, and his last throw of the game with 20 seconds to go, Eli Apple deflects it, and Wilson intercepts it. His third interception of the game. So let's talk about baseball. Catcher, shortstop, center field. When you're strong up the middle, you usually have a pretty good defense. That's where things start. DJ Reader, catcher, right there at the line of scrimmage. He's the first line of defense. Dominated. Wilson, at the next level, in the middle of the football field, had an interception. Bates, in the middle of the football field, had an interception. Catcher, shortstop, center fielder. In this case, nose tackle, inside linebacker, safety in the middle of the football field. They all made big plays. The defense had a hell of a day. I think that analogy holds very, very true in this particular case. And Jesse Bates set the tone. And like Wilson said, good things happen when you run to the football. And this kid, man, he had a tackle on Derrick Henry. And when he made this play, I'm like, his shoulder's fine. He slams him right in his midsection with that shoulder that was injured, wraps him up and takes him to the ground. And how about that? How about controlling Henry?
Yeah.
I mean, the king The King
The King didn't look very. Let's put it this way. In my opinion, the King looked slow.
Well, I'll tell you why. 20 carries, 62 yards, averaging a little over 3 per carry. In my opinion, the reason why, it goes back to Lou Anarumo and the defensive staff said, we're attacking the line of scrimmage. We're not going to two-gap catch. We're attacking. We're getting after them. We're reestablishing the line of scrimmage. We're sending it backwards. So you have a guy that hasn't played since Halloween, and he's taking the football, and as he runs toward the line of scrimmage, he sees the numbers of his offensive linemen coming back toward him. I don't give a damn who you are. It's hard to find areas to make cuts. The Bengals controlled the line of scrimmage. They reestablished the line of scrimmage backwards, and it was set by DJ Reader destroying Jones. And other guys did the same thing, attacking. He was run blitzes with linebackers coming downhill in the A and B gap. Boom, attacking. So now all of a sudden, I'm not sure he looked slow. He did look slow, but I'm not sure it was physical. I think it was like, ooh, I don't see much here. I mean, I'm a little hesitant. I'm a little apprehensive. My guys are getting my physical offensive line's getting it taken to them, and that's a big thing that the Bengals defense did. They were super aggressive, and they took it to the Titans big time.
Henry's engine just never got started.
You remember, Dave, we were talking about thing about him. Don't let him get that 5-yard roll on you.
Exactly.
You have to make him stop his feet. Make him make his first cut at the line of scrimmage or behind it. Because of that aggressiveness, that's exactly what he did. He was unsure, and he'd make his first cut behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. They did exactly what I hoped might happen in terms of making Derrick Henry, neutralizing him as the weapon. They made him stop his feet and really apprehensive, tentative. It was a hell of a game plan, and was executed to perfection by the defensive football team. I mean, yeah, you look at what they did on that the 4th down conversion, 4th and 1, stuff Henry. The 2-point conversion, stuff Henry. They get the ball, and instead of kicking the extra point, the Bengals have 12 men in the field. They take the penalty to the 1-yard line, just outside the 1-yard line. And man, the Titans say we're going to pound this ball, right in there, and off the edge comes Clay Johnston. Yeah. And I mean, Clay Johnston makes a play. Now it started with the defensive line knocking him backwards. Clay Johnston scrapes. He comes furiously off the edge. Nobody touching him. And I'm telling you, I don't care who you are. If you're getting hit or you're having to make your first cut in your own backfield, it diminishes your effectiveness big time. And that's what they did to Derrick Henry, in my estimation.
Dave, I look at this. Tannehill's getting ripped by the national media for his play.
Yep.
People are questioning if the Titans are missing their window, and they're missing it because of him. But I look at, you sit there, you had the Bengals game yesterday with the Titans. Last night you had the 49ers and Packers. 2 teams the Bengals played tough, games they should have won.
Yep.
When you look at it. I don't think the national media is giving this Bengals team enough credit. When you sit there and look at the body of work, I think just in their mindset, they're going, these are going to be the same old Bengals. And one of the things Timothy had basically a statement. He said, Burrow is skipping all the steps you are supposed to take. As I've said many times, I've had the chance to watch Joe Burrow's development from high school, college to the NFL. He hasn't skipped anything. He is just that good, especially as you've said many times, in processing what's going on in the field.
Yeah, and to back up your point, the Bengals lost to the Packers and 49ers in overtime by 3 points and could have won both of those football games. And they just battled each other for the right to go to the Final Four. They were both in the Elite Eight, and San Francisco advances to the Final Four on a big special teams play, block punt for a touchdown, a former Bengal doing that at defensive line. But the thing about Joe Burrow, here's what impresses me about Joe in his process and his preparation, Dave, is, some if you have a really talented math student, and my son, honestly, was a very talented numbers kid, a very talented math student. And, he would take advanced courses for seniors when he was a freshman at Moeller. He was on the Moeller math team as a freshman in the head of the department was like, oh, this guy, I haven't had a kid like this with this kind of math ability, since I've been here, all that kind of thing. So he'd never had to do homework. I mean, he'd just get it, go home, and next day take the test. And now, his sibling, my daughter, she wasn't that skilled. She could study for 3 days and not get at the level he got it. That's what Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow doesn't have to watch tape for 5 hours. Joe Burrow will watch tape for a half an hour and get every bit of it and retain it. He doesn't even take notes. Joe just, he's got a mind that just absorbs it and processes it. And then he can move on to the next phase, whether it be third down, red zone, whatever it is. He doesn't have to, watch. There's sometimes the misnomer is, oh, this guy's unbelievable. He'll watch tape for 2.5 hours every night. Well, that doesn't mean he's getting it. I mean, sometimes you watch, it's not watching the tape. It's how you watch the tape and what do you get out of watching the tape. And Joe Burrow, the good Lord blessed him with, thou shalt have a beautiful football mind. And when he watches tape, he can pull more out of the tape in 15 minutes than the average Joe. We're talking special Joe Burrow, than the average Joe could pull out in half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour. I mean, he just gets it. And he doesn't, I'm not saying he shortcuts anything. What I'm saying is he's so gifted that he can get more of a volume of work done. I mean, it takes him less time to get some of these quarterbacks in a week's preparation will get to 5 things in the course of the week. Joe will get to 10 because he gets it so much faster. He moves on to the next thing, and it's just like gives him more answers to tests. All he's doing is accumulating information and accumulating answers to the test. I'm telling you, this guy he's been blessed with an unbelievable mind. He has people skills. He knows how to motivate teammates. And the biggest thing you have to do is be able to play. And this guy can play, and he can play at an extremely high level. Sacked 9 times. Still threw for over 340 yards. Now,
Mabe had the best performance of quarterbacks yesterday out of the 4 that played.
Well, yeah, and part of the reason, you throw a 1 yard out to Chase, he makes a guy miss, and he goes 57. You throw a little screen pass, Joe makes people miss and goes for 24. A lot of times, Joe's got a lot of air yards on his explosive plays. These explosive plays were yards after catch, run after catch. His teammates all played well around him. They supported him. So that's what you have to have. That's what you have to have. And in the playoffs, CJ Uzomah has 13 catches for over 130 yards. CJ Uzomah has become a factor. Not has become, but if people were like, that's the regular season, playoffs going to be different. CJ Uzomah, you have to account for him. You have to consider him as well. I mean, they still have weapons everywhere that they can hurt you with. And how about Joe Mixon's night? He had 6 carries for 5 yards in the first half, 8 carries for 49 yards, averaged over 6 yards a pop in the second half, and he busted a 16-yard touchdown. So, I mean, in that first half, 6 carries for 5 yards, and his longest run was 5 yards. So the other 5 carries, he got no yards. I mean, they just couldn't get it going, find a rhythm in the running game. But boy, that first drive when they came out of the locker room, first possession in the third quarter, they were running the football with Joe, and he hammered it in there on that big 16-yard touchdown to give the Bengals a 10-point lead, and that was huge. But it was, I'll tell you, it certainly wasn't safe because back Tennessee comes and they scored 10 points in about a minute and a half. It's like, whoo, man, that didn't last long. But the Bengals still gutted out a win, and that's a great sign. They've won both games, one at home, one on the road in the playoffs, where they had to figure out different ways to win football games. It's never going to be the same. There's always going to be, who's going to make a play? Who's going to help us win this football game? Is incredible.
We're live streaming In the Trenches with Dave Lapham from First Star Logistics Studios. And Dave, again, Michael Hauser with a comment. basically his comment is San Francisco 49ers and Cincinnati Bengals, one game from Super Bowl 56. How could you ever imagine that the Bengals, 2 Super Bowls, both against the 49ers, and here we are in the year 2022, and we're possibly a game away from a Super Bowl, and again, it could be the Bengals and the 49ers in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and both of those games have been less than 1 score differential, but the 49ers have rings that we wish we had. We have AFC Championship rings, but we don't have World Championship rings. And, the way this team's going, they could be the first team to beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
We have Joe this time.
What's that?
We have Joe this time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've got Joey Be Good. That's right. We have the new Joe. Yeah, I mean that would be fitting. Stop the streak, 31 years without a playoff win. Stop the streak, 0-7 on the road in playoff history for a franchise. Stop the streak, 2 losses to the 49ers. Get them the third time's a charm.
Dave, a lot of fans make comments about the Bengals not having an indoor facility. And I know they've gone up to the University of Cincinnati and used the bubble and so forth like that. But at the same time, I've heard the players talk about practicing in the elements and being ready for whatever the elements may be. How important is an indoor facility?
I think sometimes an indoor facility is you have to have it. I mean, if it's serious precipitation issues, and there's some things that you would like to have an indoor facility just to get work done. I mean, just being out there and putting in time. It's almost like we talked about watching tape. It's not just watching, it's how you watch it. It's not just practicing, it's how you practice. How much good work are you able to get done? If you go out there and you're just tolerating weather conditions and you're not really having a good practice in terms of being crisp with what you're trying to get done from techniques and mechanics and execution, how good is that practice? But you balance that with, you're going to be playing in these elements, all week long. You practice in it, on Sunday you play in it. It's a lot easier to play in it, and that's the other part of it. But if you're in a situation where you have to go down to Miami, and you're playing in frigid conditions, practicing in frigid conditions all week, and you go down to Miami, and your blood's thick from being in that cold, and the opposition's blood is thin from being down there in the heat, man, it can tear you up. It can be a factor. So there's pros and cons to it all. There's no doubt. But the Bengals are fortunate in that they have the relationship with the Bearcats that they do, that they can go up there and use that facility when needed. But they felt like they have not had a situation yet from a weather standpoint, other than just cold, where they felt like they had to go into that facility to have a good practice because torrential rain, a bunch of snow, whatever the case may be. They wanted to experience the cold and have the guys get used to it, because that's what they're going to be playing in. And, they looked at the forecast down in Tennessee. It was as cold as it is up here down in Tennessee. It was cold down there. There's no doubt about it.
Ronnie Smith makes a comment. Free agents are now paying attention to the Bengals. I think since Joe Burrow has become a Bengal, I think they are. We've heard the comments from guys like Riley Reif and so forth. The money was spent on defense. I have a feeling it's going to get moved to offense going forward, especially as we've talked about today, the offensive line and play there. And you would have to think any offensive linemen who are free agents would want to come to Cincinnati.
Sure. There's no doubt. I mean, when they take recruits as such to Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, which is as good as there is in the country for a good meal, and you have teammates there, veteran teammates, and Joe Burrow's there, and Zach Taylor and the coaches are there, and I mean that's pretty impressive. You have a vision of what it's going to be like if you were with this organization. So I think he's huge. I mean, why would an offensive lineman not include the Cincinnati Bengals on a short list with a quarterback like Joe Burrow? The quarterback is the most important position in all of sports, never mind just football. And if you've got one that's playing at the level that Joe Burrow is playing at and is as young as Joe Burrow is, yeah, I think you're going to be able to attract anybody you want to attract. I think identify free agent offensive linemen, bring them into the Natty, Draft him as well. I think you go both areas to try to, improve and upgrade. Always make it as a competitive environment as you possibly can at that position.
Let's go. Ken Hammock, do you think the Titans had the best front that we will play against?
God, I hope so. That front was, and honestly, I was doing prep for the game and it's like, okay, well, statistically, you look at these guys, I want to make sure I don't short anybody. In the regular season, Landry had 12 sacks, 10th in the NFL. Autry had 9, tied for 21st. Simmons had 8.5 on the inside, and he was 29th, tied there. They had 3 guys in the top 30 in terms of quarterback sacks. And in this football game, everybody ate. Everybody joined the party, joined the feast. Like I said, they had 7 different guys involved in the quarterback sacks. 3 sacks by Simmons. Long, the linebacker or Cincinnati kid, had a sack. Landry had a sack and a half. Autry had a sack and a half. So the 3 guys that I just mentioned with those sacks, they combined for 6 of the 9 sacks, those 3. So during the course of the season, a 17-game season, they were all in the top 30 in the National Football League. Well, it panned out in this playoff game. They had 3 sacks, a sack and a half for a total of 6. Bud Dupree, the former Steel, we know all about him. Good outside edge rush guy. He got a sack. And Jones and Pecco combined for a half a sack each. That's how it came down to 7 different guys being involved in the quarterback sack pressure. So, and that's not including, like I said, 2 that happened that were erased by penalty and the other hits that he took on top of the sack. So I'll guarantee you right now, as we're sitting here doing this live stream, Joe's pretty sore. I bet Joe Burrow woke up this morning like, oil can. Man, kind of stiff and sore this morning. That's what he said last night at the presser at the Zoom. I feel pretty good right now. That's not to say I won't feel differently in the morning. And when he woke up this morning, I remember what it was like after playoff games because it's faster. The contact's more intense. It's just, man, you wake up the next morning, it's like, whoa, man. I feel like I got in a car wreck or something. I feel like I was really jostled around here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, you're about 80 car wrecks in one day.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to bring Cecil says, I remember back before the internet when Lap was on sports of all sorts.
Yeah.
Some caller said, I like David Klingler because he's tall, dark, and handsome. and then Kentucky Ron followed that up and said that Popovich would stammer, look embarrassed, and hang up the phone.
Yeah. So this ain't Hollywood. This is the National Football League. Doesn't matter how tall, dark, and handsome you are. Can you play? And David Klingler took a bunch of sacks. I think he got sacked 8 or 9 times in a game as well. But he didn't throw for 340 yards.
Yeah,
like Joe did. That's for sure.
And the Bengals didn't win.
No. And I feel so badly for Joe Burrow's streak of over 200 passes without an interception to fall by the wayside. Samaje Perine has to feel horrible. It was a great throw. Joe put the ball right where he had to, and it just kind of bounced and split Samaje's hands, and the diving interception made. Every interception in that football game was a great play. That was a great play as well, and they reviewed it. It did hit the ground, but they said he had control of the football before it touched the ground, I should say. It didn't hit the ground. Before the nose of the football touched the ground, and they took a long time to review it, and they said the call stands. That means that there wasn't enough evidence video-wise to overturn it. So if they had called it incomplete, I don't think they would have overturned that either. Then when you come back from replay and say the call stands, that means whatever. That's why it's so important. What is the call before you go to replay?
Yeah,
on a close play like that, and that call stood. But because Joe, man, he was over 200 attempts without an interception. He hadn't thrown an interception in 6 games. This was the 6th game, and that interception is not on him. But that's football, and he understands that.
Yep. Logan B says, was DJ Reader the biggest Pro Bowl snub? When's the last time you noticed multiple big plays from a nose tackle in a game?
Well, I'll tell you what, Simmons the other tackle, he didn't make it either. I think Simmons having 3 sacks in that game, DJ Reader controlling the interior of the defensive line for the Bengals the way they did. I think both guys made statements like, what about me? I mean, I belong. I belong. I mean, that was what DJ Reader just, he stepped it up multiple notches. I mean, he played an extremely physical football game. This guy, all these guys, like the old saying goes, oh, these guys are good in the National Football League. They're all genetic marvels. I mean, DJ Reader was a catcher that was draftable by Major League Baseball. This big old guy could move back there, catch, had a really good throwing arm, hit the ball. I mean, come on, man. That's unbelievable athleticism. These guys are freakazoids.
Brandon Daniels, why don't you think Carmen gets to start at right guard because Adeniji was getting pushed around?
Well, once again, Frank Pollock makes the decision based on what are you doing at practice every day? What are you doing in meetings every day? How seriously are you taking things? These evaluations aren't made lightly. I mean, there's a million snaps, a million practices. I mean, it's not just Frank Pollock doesn't close his eyes and draw names out of a hat. Frank Pollock evaluates everything you're doing, everything. And he decided that he was going to go with Adeniji. And Adeniji has played pretty darn well. He did not have a good game yesterday, and a few guys in the offensive line didn't have great performances. But, you know what you have to do in that case, if you're Jackson Carman, if you're Big Fred, you go out, the very first practice this week, you go out like it's a game. You go out and say, Coach, check, not saying it, doing it by your actions. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, Frank's like, oh, man, looks like he wants to play. Wow, let's take a look. Maybe give him some snaps. You control your own destiny. And if the coach decided that it wasn't good enough, you're the one that has to up the ante and do things better in meetings, maybe take better notes, maybe have a better understanding of what's going on. Because if a coach, the biggest thing a coach has to have is confidence. And if the coach isn't sure, I'm not sure if he knows all the assignments. I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with this, comfortable with that. You have to eliminate all that. So it's on the player. It's on you. And of course, I've heard tons of players, oh, man, he's got it out for me. He just doesn't like me. The dude is trying to hold on to his job as well. He's going to play the players that he thinks are going to perform the best for him. It's not a popularity contest or it's like, yeah, I got an axe to grind. I got a grudge with you. I've seen players and coaches really don't like each other, but the best player is playing because the coach wants to keep his job. So bottom line is you have to perform, period. That's what it boils down to.
Jackpot Journey says, Dave, will this be a Super Bowl contender with a couple more good offensive linemen?
I think it's a Super Bowl contender right now. They're in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you got to consider them. It's not like they don't belong. And, like CJ Uzama was saying today, Joe Burrow, how about this one, Dave? Joe Burrow says, all right, that's enough of the what about us? We're in this. We're in this. We're going to make noise. Forget about what about us. That's like that's not definitive enough. So CJ changed it to it is us. Instead of what about us? Now it is us. And that was driven, like he said, by Joey Franchise. Joe Burrow got up in front of the team. All the captains spoke to the team. And Joe said, I really don't have anything to say. And then he thought a while, he got up and he said, I got something to say. And he said, this stuff about what about us? What about us? Yeah, we belong. We're going to make some noise. I mean, I don't like, to me, that what about us is just, it's not giving us enough credit. CJ changed it. It is us. I love it.
I want to put this. Paul Eastev had a question. He says, hey, Dave, you think we could sign a better O-line guy than what we have this week, who is healthy and a free agent right now? And he, Mitchell Schwartz, he mentions.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing, you're in the playoffs, and to sign a guy and to get him up to speed with everything that you need to get up to speed with as far as an offensive lineman is concerned, there's a ton. And yeah. You're going against the best because it's the playoffs. And, I know that it's happened, and I know there are cases of it, and heck, Quentin Spain is the latest example. Last year in the Bengals 31-20 victory, Quentin Spain showed up 2 days before the game, and literally he's in the tunnel between the locker room and the field, getting a crash course on the Bengals terminology and assignments and all that. And he didn't start the game, but after one series, because of lack of performance, he was thrown into the game and played every snap. And they beat the team that let him go, the Tennessee Titans, beat him 31-20. That was a legendary thing from Quentin Spain. But particularly if you're talking, where you have to communicate a lot of calls and that sort of thing, the interior of the offensive line, that might be a little bit of a trick. I think right now, you dance with the partner that brung you, and just maybe tweak internally with guys that are here that have been here all year long. Maybe split series or something like that. If that's the case, you want to start to see maybe it's like, okay, well, we'll let some of these other guys, throw them in there for a series. Go ahead, Big Fred. Head in there. See what it. See, I want to see how you play out there. For a series or so. Jackson, why don't you grab the next series at guard? Maybe you do that, and but to disrupt the continuity of the offensive line that's playing well, that has to be a desperate situation. And I'm not sure, how Frank feels about it at this point in time. After he watched the tape, we'll see.
Thank you, One Nation Underground. It said boost Dave's channel, like, comment, and subscribe. We thank you for that comment.
Yes.
And yes, please do help us continue to grow this channel. We thank everybody that's helped make this channel what it is so far. We've been doing the YouTube channel since April 4th, and we continue to have really good numbers, and we've put a lot of work into it, and we hope to continue doing that. And we want to thank the people at First Star Logistics for their support, because without them, we wouldn't be doing it.
No doubt.
And but it also takes you, the fan, to come to the channel, watch the videos, or listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. And let's go just a little bit longer, Dave, because I know you've had a long couple days.
I see something, Dave, I'd like to address. I see from Michael Hauser about Brian Callahan. Will Brian Callahan be moving on potentially to another team as a coach? Brian Callahan was interviewed by the Denver Broncos to be their head football coach by Zoom last week. My understanding is today, Lou Anarumo is going to be interviewed in the same fashion by the New York Football Giants as a candidate for the head football coach. Brian Callahan has coached in Denver before. He was there when Peyton Manning was there. Lou Anarumo was with the New York Giants before. Both guys had impressed those organizations, ownership, management, and they're seeing how they have had an instrumental impact on the turnaround with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's what happens with success. Brian Callahan, Lou Anarumo getting interviews. Darren Simmons, the special teams coordinator, assistant head coach, he should be getting interviews as well, in my opinion. This guy is as good as there is in the National Football League with what he does. And a couple of decades here, he has developed so many players and nurtured them and turned them into, players at another level. He's made good players great players Hall of Famers. And that's Darren Simmons. That's what he's all about.
Dave, we talked about after the game last night, and Jim Harden, thoughts on Chris Evans as a returner. I thought that was a great move. He really proved that he has that ability.
I thought McPherson obviously was the biggest shining star example on special teams, but I put Evans in there for an honorable mention, and another guy that I put in there is Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers had to play gunner. Stanley Morgan was down because of the hamstring injury. Stanley Morgan is one of Darren Simmons' core players. All four special teams units, Stanley Morgan's involved. So it's by committee when he's down like that. Trey Flowers had not played gunner very much in his NFL career. He made some plays at the gunner position for Darren Simmons. So you have these guys stepping up, like we talked about earlier. Who makes a play on the 2-point conversion? Clay Johnston. I mean, he didn't have a defensive snap before he came to the Cincinnati Bengals. He played up in Cleveland in that last regular season game, but to make a play that he made on the 2-point conversion where he stoned the king, that's big time. Trey Flowers, expanding his role to play the gunner position. How about Zach Kerr taking snaps at defensive tackle? He's going into the huddle and introducing himself. Hey, I'm Zach. What's your name? I don't recognize these faces. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The personnel department, to be able to get a guy like Zach Kerr, who's played in the league for a while, and he was with the Arizona Cardinals. They're calling him 2-paycheck Kerr because he was with the Arizona Cardinals in their playoff game last week. He was on the roster. They had to let him go to activate J.J. Watt, and they put him on their practice squad. As soon as they put him on their practice squad, the Bengals jumped on him because they knew that Ogunjobi was going to be going to injury reserve. So they allowed him to stay with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals allowed him to be part of the playoff roster. They brought him up from the practice squad to the active squad for the playoff game. So he gets a playoff check from Arizona. He comes right to the Bengals and gets a playoff check from the Bengals just a few days later. So they're calling him double paycheck.
Yeah, and you may want to explain that to some fans that don't know that each game is a separate check than what the regular contract is from the season.
Right. The playoffs aren't and it's universal. I mean, these big stars take pay cuts literally to play in the playoffs. It's not like it's chicken feed. It's good money, but it's not. If you have a guy making $25-35 million, his game check during the season is a lot bigger than what it is in the playoffs. But yeah, everybody gets the same amount. As you advance in the playoffs, the further you go, the bigger the amount is until you get all the way to the Super Bowl. And there's a winner and loser payout. The winner gets more and advances. The loser gets his paycheck and goes home.
Chucker, offensive line aside, what is the second most critical move the Bengals need to make after the postseason ends?
In my mind, it's always, you can never have enough great cover guys. So anytime you can supplement what you're doing on the back end, I think is a big deal. Now you're going to have to make some decisions. Larry Ogunjobi's only on a 1-year contract, and he's got a broken foot. He's on injury reserve. But, what do you do with Larry Ogunjobi? Jesse Bates is a guy that still hasn't – you're going to franchise tag Jesse Bates. You're going to pay Jesse Bates. There are some things that they need to get finalized. And take care of some internal business in terms of, their roster. And after that point in time, then you find out exactly where you are and make some decisions. But in my opinion, offensive line and the secondary are two places where you can't go wrong if you're trying to beef things up.
From Jericho 941, Lap, what you think of Bengals trading down to get Tyler Lindenbaum and moving Hopkins to right guard?
I don't think the Bengals trading down. I don't think he's going to be there when the Bengals select in the first round. I think Tyler Lindenbaum, he may be gone. I'm not sure they're going to be able to. They may have to trade up to get him. I'm not sure trading down would be an answer. This guy is, a lot of people are saying, is a first-round draft pick, and the way the Bengals are playing, they're going to have a very late first-round draft pick. They're not going to be in the top 5 anymore, like you're thinking in the past, where the Bengals would be trading down. The Bengals are going to have to think about trading up if they identify a very good candidate, very good prospect. So that's a much different dynamic. There's no question about it. But that kid can play in everybody's estimation. I haven't really gotten into studying the prospects in the draft yet. Just haven't had time to do that, and I'm glad I don't have time to do that. That's what I always do after the regular season ends. It's like, all right, well, next thing to do is start getting ready for the draft, just like all the teams that aren't in the playoffs are doing. Start doing that. And I haven't had time to do that yet.
We've had this question before. Patrick Hayes asked, hey, Lap, have you ever thought about coaching? I'll let you quickly answer that because I know you've had opportunities to be a coach.
Yeah, I have. I thought about it and had some opportunities to coach in college football when I was doing Big 12 games. And then here in Forrest Gregg asked me about my interest in coaching when he went up to Green Bay. left the Cincinnati Bengals, went up to Green Bay, and asked me about that. But my wife really loved Cincinnati. It turned out to be a great decision to stay in Cincinnati. Both my kids live in Cincinnati. 4 of my grandchildren live in Cincinnati. Instead of hopscotching around the country potentially to be a coach, I was able to set roots and anchor here in Cincinnati, and ended up going to the broadcasting end of it. But I still, honestly, I'll be totally honest, I still think, man, I wonder how it would have been. I wonder how it would have worked out. Because you can go from player to coach to broadcaster. You can't go player to broadcaster to coach. That's a tougher transition, a tougher deal to do. Some guys have done it, but not very many. The path of player to coach to broadcaster is much more commonplace. So I felt like at some point I could have gotten to the broadcasting end of it if I decided to do that, if the coaching didn't work out. But I think I would have been decent at it, because I know I would have enjoyed the process. I love football. Would have liked, working with guys. College level, that recruiting part, man, that eats your whole life up. Recruiting's tough. In the National Football League, though, I know during the season the hours are crazy. 6 months of the year, you're absolutely nuts, and your family has a different dynamic to it in terms of how much they see you and everything else. But in the off season, it's much different. And college football, though, man, you're on the road a lot with that recruiting part of it. So that was always a big part of my consideration as well, because I definitely wanted to spend time with my kids and my family.
We have a watcher in Germany. Love Lap and his analysis.
Appreciate that. I think the commissioner, I listened to the commissioner earlier this year, and he was saying there's going to be a NFL franchise in Europe. I mean, they're working toward that. And they've done a lot of work in England, with London, obviously. But, man, when I did NFL Europe, and I loved – that was great. It was good football. Kurt Warner came out of NFL Europe. I mean, Kurt Warner was basically found in NFL Europe. The guy was stocking grocery shelves at a grocery store, and he gets a shot to play in NFL Europe, and the rest is history. Goes to the National Football League, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. It was good football, really good coaching, and got to see Europe. And every place we went in Germany, they love American football, and they showed up to the games, whether it was Berlin, Frankfurt, Dusseldorf, didn't matter. I mean, they sold out. And the reason why? Because in the World War, the American soldiers played football. So the German people would like, whoa, what did these guys do? They got acclimated to American football because of the soldiers playing in World War over there, and it kind of caught on. And that when we would do games in those cities, those were about the only cities where the fans were cheering at the right time. It was weird. You'd go to Barcelona, Spain, and they'd cheer at these, what are they cheering for? Really? And they wouldn't cheer after a big play. They just didn't understand the game. Germany, those fans are rabid for American football. There's no doubt.
Andrew West asked Lap, our red zone struggles continued this week. That will not work against Kansas City or Buffalo next week. How do we adjust?
Yeah, offensively they did. Defensively, they continued in a positive way. Like I said earlier, they held the Raiders to 1 touchdown and 5 red zone journeys, and they held the Titans to 1 touchdown and 3 red zone journeys. And so they're 2 for 8, the opponent, in the playoffs. That's phenomenal. 25% conversion rate. The Bengals were 1 for 2, 50%. And yeah, when you get down in the red zone, you want to convert. You want to get 7. You don't want to settle for 3. There's absolutely no two ways about it. So again, in the beginning of the season, the Bengals were top 3 in the league for about, 7 weeks, first 7 weeks of the season. They were up there. They were converting like 70%. It was crazy. But they've been 50% or less for a while now, over the back end stretch of it. And settling for a field goal half the time in the red zone could come back to bite you. There's no doubt about it. But to hold the team 1 for 8 in the red zone, the Bengals, 1 for 3 in the red zone. The Bengals held them, the Titans, 1 for 8 on third down. 1 for 8. and they're 1 for 3 in the red zone, and the Bengals are holding on for dear life trying to win the football game because of the sacks. I mean, I can't tell you what playoff team, the last playoff team that won a playoff game, giving up 9 quarterback sacks. I don't know. I don't know how far back you have to go. I'm sure it's being researched right now, but that is a rarity now, big time.
You're in the trade.
They won it. They won it because of red zone defense, third down defense. I mean, they won it for when they won time of possession. I mean, the Titans had the ball for 32 minutes and 43 seconds a game, or 40 seconds a game, 32-40 a game, the regular season, second in the NFL. Green Bay had it for 32-43. They were number 1, 3-second difference. In this football game, how about this for time of possession? The Bengals, as I recall, had it for over 33 minutes. Yeah, 33 minutes and 26 seconds. And Tennessee has it for 26 minutes and 35 seconds. And that was huge. The Bengals ran 12 more snaps. So, I mean, the Bengals won it in areas, they converted a much heftier dose on third down. They were almost 50%. They were 7 for 16, 46.7%. 1 for 8, 12.5% conversion rate. That's third down, red zone, situational football. The defense dominated the Titans in situational football. They were +2 in the turnover department. 3 takeaways, only 1 giveaway. +2. When you win if you're +1 in the playoffs, you win 75% of the time. When you go +2, you win like 85% of the time. And they're holding on for dear life. Why? 9 quarterback sacks. And they only had 1 against the Tennessee Titans. That was a big deal.
You are in the trenches with Dave Lapham from the First Star Logistics Studios. Dave, we're going to wrap it up here shortly. We've been on over an hour, 15 minutes, and I'm sure Lim would like to see you this weekend. But,
yeah, really.
But Tyrone Thomas, the Bengals don't have the mindset of who they prefer to play. They don't care. Us fans must take that same mentality this team has. No fear, should we? So should we?
No, I think you're exactly right. At this stage, you're at this stage for a reason. And when you're preparing for this football game, you're trying to break tendencies. So all the things like you're thinking about, oh boy, played against the Chiefs, handled them. Well, we're going to study that film, make it. So are the Chiefs. I mean, it's not all one way. I mean, it's a 2-way street here. But in my mind, I think I would prefer that the Bengals play the Kansas City Chiefs just because how balanced a football team the Buffalo Bills are. The Bills overall, offensively, defensively, special teams, all 3 components, they're number 1 in the NFL in yards and points allowed defensively. Number 1. And a bunch of other categories as well. Plus their offense with Josh Allen is up there. And Josh Allen, this guy is a freak. I mean, his numbers are stupid. What he's doing in the National Football League as a quarterback. He's running the ball for over 700 yards, and he's got a big old howitzer hanging off that right shoulder. Big bodied guy. When they run the quarterback run game and it's 11 on 11, and he's weighing close to 250, carrying the football and can run. I mean, they're problem. They present problems. And I'm not saying it's a day in the park to go to Kansas City by any stretch of the imagination. Go to Arrowhead, and all you have is Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Kelsey. You kidding me? Jones, the defensive interior lineman. But that's the way it is. It's playoffs, and you're in the Final Four. How about Cincinnati? University of Cincinnati making the college football playoffs, Final Four. Bengals making the NFL playoffs and getting all the way to the Final Four. What a great year for Cincinnati football, Dave.
Dan, and you get to spend a lot of time with Dan.
Oh, yeah.
And I think people are finally starting to recognize the two of you and what great job you guys do. And but what a year for Dan Horde. Now, after the Bengals done, he needs the UC Bearcats basketball team to do something.
And I'll tell you, they're playing at an extremely high level. Coach Miller's doing a great job. I mean, I think they're in a transition personnel-wise, but, man, he's got them playing well. I really like him. I think he's going to be a keeper for sure.
Brandon R. says, Joe Burrow, first number 1 overall QB to advance to the AFC Championship within his first 2 years.
Right. Yep. And this is exactly the way he envisioned it. I mean, this is no surprise to Joe Burrow. That's why everybody's like waiting for Joe to have one of these like, moments of like, I don't know if they're looking for a meltdown or whatever, but Joe's just like, let's get after it. Let's put this away. We won this football game. Let's start preparing for the next one. This is what he expected. All they're doing is meeting his expectations, and he's raised the boat. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I'm going to kind of go through here. There was part where you talked about Lou Anarumo being talked to with the Giants. Someone posted, why would you want to go to the Giants? And they did say that basically, hey, that's one of 32 jobs. But at the same time, to get the chance to be a head coach in the NFL doesn't happen for a lot of people. And I think people are starting to recognize that Lou took a lot of crap a year ago, and he's reaping the benefits of what he's built with this defense this year.
Oh, it's crazy. I do know in the coaching profession, if you get into the coaching profession and you have any chutzpah to you at all, you want to be a head coach. I mean, everybody sets goals, and your ultimate goal is to be a head coach. So you're right. There's only 32 head coaching opportunities. And if one comes your way, you don't say, no, I don't want that. That's not the one I want. I'm going to wait for something else. You could wait a long time at that point. When you turn a head coaching opportunity down, all the other teams in the league say, what's up with that guy? He's off my list. I don't want to be turned down. I mean, it's, all I can say is it's unbelievable. I feel good for these coaches because, a lot of people's estimation, they were ready to put the whole organization in the outhouse. Now, all of a sudden, all these coaches are in pet house. Zach Taylor is getting credible and deserved mention for Coach of the Year, and deservedly so. And now his coordinators are both being interviewed for head coaching positions with organizations they've been with in the past. So these organizations know the kind of people they are. And now, after being involved in a turnaround, we're talking about a football team that was 6-25-1 in the last 2 seasons. And here they are in the Final Four. A lot of it is being at the right place, the right time, the right year to have the first pick of the draft and making the proper decision on who that was going to be. Joe Burrow.
Yeah. And I remember the year before, a lot of Bengals fans that are also Ohio State fans was wanting Haskins drafted in that class.
Yeah, Haskins, he got drafted. He was the 7th pick of the draft, I think, when he came out. He was a high pick as well. It just goes to show you, being drafted is one thing, and developing your game and performing is another. Being drafted at a certain number doesn't guarantee that you're going to pan out.
No.
More guys fail than make it. But I think everybody that was involved in the process of vetting Joe Burrow realized he's got the fiber. He's got the inners. He's got what it takes. It's not just, he's blessed physically. This guy's blessed in so many ways, and it all interconnects. And when they vetted him, it was unanimous. This guy is the guy. Nobody else. This guy is the guy. No discussion. No, sit down. Oh, they didn't even stand up anyway. My bad. Everybody's in agreement. Joe Burrow's our guy.
Well, a couple fun posts here as we get ready to close out here in the trenches with Dave Lapham from the First Star Logistics Studios. Chucker says, Lap, throw that jersey on behind you and get into that whole line. And then,
man, I couldn't imagine how bad that would be. You talk about rigor mortis. If I took one snap, I wouldn't be able to walk the next day.
Chris Evans says, Lap, did you ever celebrate a big win with Houday beer back in the day? Rock and roll with Huda Pole. I know your roommate did, Ken Anderson. I've heard some conversations you two have had.
Oh, gosh.
We've had Ken on the in the trenches.
Yeah, I would put my dear friend and former roommate, in a beer drinking contest with any human being on earth. My man can go. He can go. He's incredible. And I'm not sure if I still have the cans, but during our Super Bowl season, they came out with the beer, the Houday beer, and I saved it for as long as I could. Certainly can't drink it anymore. I think my brother both my brothers may have cans of that still too, that they get out here in Cincinnati in 1981-82 when we were making our way to Super Bowl 16.
Alan M says, Lap coined the phrase, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane when describing D-lineman Pete Koch.
Yeah, that's yeah, just because you have a beautiful body, you're a bodybuilder, doesn't mean you're a football player. Or they'd have every bodybuilder out there playing in the National Football League. You got a couple of different skill sets there. I've seen some guys that look like they never trained for a day in their life that would tear you up on a football field. And then I've seen body beautiful guys that can't play a lick. And then I've seen the other way as well. I mean, don't be fooled by appearances because sometimes, man, I didn't think this guy had that in him. Sometimes guys fool you.
That's why I always love it with evaluating offensive linemen. And a guy goes, hey, he's 6'6", 340 pounds. And I said, yeah, he can't move.
Yeah, right. That's good if you want to build a condo and have a stationary object, right?
Yep. Dave, we're at that point where we could go on and go on and on, but I want to get you home today because you've been on the road, busy last few weeks. And we're very happy that it gets to continue for at least another week here on In the Trenches and all your work you do with the Bengals. So let's get you home. We want to thank everybody for being part of the live stream today. We had a great attendance. We thank you for the comments. Sorry we can't get to everybody and put it up on the screen, but I know we'll be doing some more live streams going forward. And also make sure you stay tuned all week for the content because I know Dave's working on getting some people together. And we had a great past week with CJ Uzama, Luan Rumo, Dan Pitcher, Darren Simmons. I mean, great content leading up to the game against the Titans. And we'll look to do that the same this week leading up to whoever the Bengals are going to play, be it the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Dave, I'll let you make your final comments before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo, the fact that these shows, we try to put our best foot forward in terms of giving you folks information that you find worthy. Because I'll tell you what, when we do these live streams, you fans, you're intelligent fans. The questions you ask, I mean, it's impressive, and it makes me even more motivated to try to give you as much good information as I possibly can because you all are so educated about the game of football and about the Cincinnati Bengals. So we all want to be part of each other's universe in that way. There's no doubt, and I learned things from you guys as well. If you ever think that you know it all and there's nothing else to learn, you're done. And I don't want to be done yet. And then finally, like you say, Dave, I want to thank First Star Logistics because this company, everything they do it the right way. And when doing this podcast video cast In the Trenches that we're doing with First Star Logistics, they provide Dave Burke and I the tools and the opportunity to do as good a job as we possibly can do. I mean, there's no limit to what we might be able to do because First Star Logistics puts everything out there for us, and want to thank them. And it's a good relationship, and I want to do this with everybody, you, the fans, First Star Logistics, everybody involved for as long as we possibly can.
And hopefully I get cleared this week and can come back into the studio, having been stuck in my house in quarantine since about the 3rd of January. So
yeah, the Bengals had to put players on a list down there, and then we had to put you on a list for a little while up here, Dave. You're on the First Star Logistics list. So you sound good. You look good. Hopefully we see you this week, stud.
Feeling much, much better. Thank you, Dave. So again, thank you to First Star Logistics and everybody for being part of today's live stream. And again, hit the like button. Subscribe to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube. Go also and check out Dave's Twitter account at DL In the Trenches, and also First Star Logistics at First Star Logistics. So if you're looking for a new career, be sure to give the folks at First Star Logistics a call. They're hiring. They're looking for great, talented people. So make sure you reach out to them. So Dave, again, thank you. And we want to thank everybody again, and good night. Enjoy football the rest of the day. Some great games on tap, and I'm sure we'll be talking about them later in the week. So thank you.
Houday, baby. AFC Championship game coming up on Sunday. Let's go. It's awesome.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.